Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order, and we'll note that all board members are present. There's a little bit, we're doing something a little bit different tonight because as required by the Missouri Statute 67.110, the Board of Education holds a public hearing on the proposed tax rates for the upcoming tax year, for the 2019 tax year. Now, after the hearing, and later in the combined meeting, the tax rates will be voted on by the Board of Education. Our Deputy Superintendent, Carol Embry, is going to provide additional information. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you. Good evening. So yes, this is our annual event where we provide that tax rate hearing, and I want you to know that this is all, again, relative to the information that's been provided to us by Greene County. And you should know also that there's a deadline of September 1 each year, so this is just-in-time delivery of this information. We do have a specific process that we follow, and that requires us engaging with the State Auditor's Office, where we utilize their online tool to work through the calculation. And for the information that Greene County has indicated to us at this time, we see an assessed valuation percentage increase of 5.6649% overall. And a reminder to you that this is an odd year, so this is a reassessment year. The new construction component of that increase is, that's great.
You're
I
being
have children.
upstaged.
I have
You
children.
are. I mean, it's
so
sort of
excited.
interesting, but
I
like,
always want kids and what I'm talking about.
we like watching.
Yes, this is great. Of that, the new construction component is just under 52 million, 51,961,050. That's a 3.3% increase over the final new construction reported to us last December. So the Consumer Price Index, you may remember, controls how much the levy may increase for operating purposes. And the Consumer Price Index cap for this year's process is limited to 1.9% increase. The CPI for last year was 2.1%, so it's not much different. And before that, it was 2.1%. But you may remember also in 2016 and 2015, we only enjoyed a 0.7, a 0.8. So this is great. This is an indicator that our economy continues to be strong and that we continue to see great growth in our Springfield community. So as Mr. Rosenberry referenced, we are compliant with Missouri Statute 67.110 and also Board Policy DC2 that complements that statute. And the bottom line for us is this. The operating levy would see a decrease of just under 6 cents, 0.0597, a decrease. And the debt service levy will see an increase of the 9 cents that was approved by our patrons with the 2019 bond election. So here are the numbers. The new levy recommendation for operating is 3.4961. The debt service levy would go from that 55 cents to 64 cents for a combined total levy of 4.1361. So that is the information relative to the work through the state auditor calculation process. Again, our debt service levy continues to be the lowest in the region, and the revenue adjustments will occur at next month's board meeting based on our current budget information. So we'll bring that forward to you as part of the treasurer's report. If you are also interested to know, we did do our normal posting. That is not required to be in the newspaper, but we do deliver it throughout the community. We make sure that we post it at each of our 5 high schools. We posted it at this building. We also posted it at primary places throughout the community, such as libraries and other Greene County facilities like the courthouse. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, that would conclude this portion of the tax rate hearing and open for public comments.
Any questions for Carol? Thank you, Carol. All right. As was stated at the beginning, this is a public hearing, so the public hearing is open, and we invite any member of the public to come forward and offer comments regarding the ad valorem property tax rates for 2019. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during this public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. We will now move forward to the next item on the regular meeting agenda, and I think that's you, Stephen. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are joined by two students from Delaware Elementary, Bailey and Ephraim Russell. Bailey and Ephraim, would you come forward, please? You can stand right there for us. As you know, Delaware Elementary is having an exciting school year. On Monday, we will be celebrating the beginning of construction during a groundbreaking ceremony at 4:30 p.m. So Bailey is a fifth grader, and if you want, you can face the board because they would love to be able to see you.
Hi, guys.
Bailey is a fifth grader and Ephraim is a fourth grader. Their principal, Mrs. Stephanie Young, is here, as is Counselor Robin Fondren, and they describe these students as embodying everything special about Delaware. They are kind, inclusive, and they're a friend to everyone. They're full of smiles, they tell great stories, I hear, and they also love their little sister, Elia, who we met earlier, right? So Mrs. Young says that these students represent the very best and of Springfield Public Schools as well. At this time, we invite their family members and the Delaware team to please stand so that we can acknowledge them for their support. So we invite everyone who's able to please stand while Bailey and Ephraim lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Whenever you're ready.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. What a wonderful job.
Right.
Whoops, we're going to get your photo.
One more picture.
Wish we had time for one of those stories. Yeah. How long would it take? How long would it take? Can you do it in 35 seconds or less? Come on up. Come on.
Mom's going, oh my goodness.
Come on.
It's all right, Mom.
Come on, girlie. You can do it.
Give her the mic, Steve.
Here we go.
Ready.
You just stand back here.
You're gonna have to come back together.
Here, right. Stand like this. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
You can do it. You can do
Okay.
it.
Once upon a time.
I've heard that line before. You can do it.
Okay. There was a ladybug.
Okay.
A ladybug likes to eat grass. This was an odd ladybug. This ladybug it lit up and it flew really high in the sky like a bird. And this ladybug sometimes fell, but that's okay. This ladybug liked to hang out with horses and be friend with the birds, and her favorite thing was to climb trees, even though it took more than a day. And yeah, that's it.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Well done, Bailey.
I think it's a Tarantino film in the making.
Excellent narrative.
And you know what else? You guys don't have to stay for the rest.
I think there's a book
I love
there.
bravery.
There's a book story there.
Thank you.
That was great. Well, we'll continue with our honoring excellence this evening. We are joined by the HOSA team from Central High School.
Are you guys all ready with a story, each of you? What's the plan? I'm kidding. You can come up.
So this summer, many of our students participated in competitions, and we are pleased to honor one of those groups tonight. Central High School's HOSA is an academic organization for future health professionals, and it focuses on service, leadership, and medical skills development. The group is led by Central teacher Adrienne Deckert. Mrs. Deckert, can you wave at us? Right here. Awesome. So this year, 42 middle school and high school members of Central HOSA qualified to compete at the 2019 HOSA International Leadership Conference in Orlando, Florida. For the second year in a row, HOSA was selected to represent the state of Missouri for its outstanding achievement and was one of 4 chapters in the world to receive the International Recognition Award of Outstanding HOSA Achievement for their pediatric cancer awareness events. So at this time, we invite Mrs. Deckert to come forward and share about her individual team awards and a little bit about these members. Mrs. Deckert?
I am Adrienne Deckert. I'm the adult that has the honor of supporting our wonderful leaders at HOSA at Central High School. As he had mentioned, we did get the Outstanding HOSA Achievement Award, which was awarded we were one of 4 schools in the entire world that received that award. We also received Outstanding HOSA Chapter for our high school division. How many of you guys are in high school? High school division. And then we received Outstanding HOSA Chapter for our middle school division. Which middle schoolers do I have? Yay. And then we also received the Outstanding HOSA Service Project Certificate of Recognition. So it's a national service project certificate of recognition for our high school. And then we also received the HOSA Service Project Certificate of Merit for our middle school division. We received a HOSA Happenings Certificate of Recognition. That was for our newsletter to describe what kind of events we were doing in community service and leadership throughout the school year. We had 3 students win the Barbara James Service Award, and that is for accumulating a certain number of service hours throughout the school year. Those were Will Hudson, Katie Liu, and Evelyn Van Buren that were not able to come tonight. We had 2 students win a mastery level achievement in healthcare issues, so understanding current events in healthcare. Those were Zoe Bergant and Lena Wynn, who were also not able to come tonight. Our debate team, our biomedical debate team, took 2nd place in the world, and those consisted of Andrew An. Andrew is here. And Elizabeth Cardoza, Tohid Mahmood, and Surya Mandava. The others were not able to come tonight. And then we have a middle schooler that was also, that received international recognition. She took 8th place in the entire world for her understanding of nutrition, and that is Jenna Skidmore.
Wow.
And that's it. That's all we got.
That's all we got is best in the
Amazing.
world.
Very much. We're proud of you.
In the world.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Nice, you guys.
Very much. Thank you. And that concludes our honoring excellence for the evening, and we'll begin our Power of One hero recognition at next month's meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And congratulations to the Central Group. That is awesome.
Very impressive. Well done.
Yeah. All right. We move into the business session of the meeting. And our first item is 1.04, the approval of the agenda. The recommended action is that the board approve the agenda as presented. I hear a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Thank you, Alina. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charles. Any discussion on the motion? We're ready to vote? Please vote. There it is.
I think I got kicked off. of-
Well, it's about time.
I had to go back in.
Yeah, so I'm signing back in.
Just do it
You can say
verbally.
aye for me, yes.
Yeah.
We lost
Does
connection.
anybody have to vote, come up yet?
My vote came up. I did have to check back in a minute ago,
I'm good.
which I would like you to know I did
I ayed.
alone
If I have to log out and log back in?
I'm gonna log, I'm gonna,
without my helper.
We love computers. There it is. The ayes have it.
I got one.
Ooh, close one.
Okay, we are going now on into item 2.01, public comments to address agenda items. And folks, we do have 2 speakers. Before I invite the speakers to come forward, I'll read this part. The Board of Education welcomes comments from the audience about the issues being discussed. It is recommended that requests to speak be submitted prior to the beginning of the meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary. It's inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. If you have materials that you want to share, please provide them to the board secretary and she will distribute them to us. Both speakers are speaking regarding 9.02, the new business and the student fees update. The first speaker is Miles Pearson. Welcome, sir.
I timed it. I was 5 minutes, 20 seconds, so I'll talk fast. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My name is Miles Pearson. I have 2 teenage children that attend Springfield Public Schools. I'm here to begin a conversation between parents and the board around the current busing policies at the high school level. Before I begin, I want to say that I understand that this will not be solved tonight, and that it is an issue that is a complex one. I also understand that we are working with limited financial resources. However, I do hope that this does start a process of an ongoing dialogue around creative solutions. It is my belief that we are all here tonight because we love Springfield and we want the best for the folks living here, especially our children. I am here today to bring awareness to the issue of bus eligibility for students in SPS. Currently, busing is only available to high school students that live 3.5 miles or more away from their designated SPS school. Students inside that radius must be driven by someone, drive themselves, ride with older students, ride the city bus, bike, or walk up to 7 miles to get to school. Only about 30% of the students that live in the Parkview School District are even eligible to ride the bus. That means that what I am discussing here today affects 70% of the students at Parkview High School. Students who live within 3.5 miles of the school can pay $594 a year to ride the bus, or $297 a year for students on free and reduced lunches, which is an increase of $38 and $19 respectively from last year. This is about $3.41 a day, or $1.71 a ride, assuming the student rides the bus both ways. There are many concerns that I and many parents have with this policy, but tonight I will be focusing on how this policy affects the safety of our children, the environmental impacts, the roads, and the social and economic impacts the busing has on our families. First, I'm going to talk about the aspect of safety around this busing policy. For my son to walk or bike to school, he would have to cross 2 main north-south roads and 2 uncontrolled but commonly used commuter sections. But this isn't just about my son, this is about all the students who are within that 3.5 mile radius, and nearly every student within that radius would have to cross a major intersection or a dangerous uncontrolled intersection. The 5.5 mile radius around Parkview actually includes another high school, Central High School. This radius also includes Campbell, National, Chestnut Expressway, and Kansas Expressway. But as you know, even minor roads like Jefferson, Fort, Fremont, and Kimbrough can be quite dangerous due to commuter traffic. You might be thinking the Parkview's boundaries don't even cross Chestnut Expressway, which is true, they do not. However, it is telling that our current busing policy stretches far beyond these boundaries and is not at all tailored to the needs of our schools. In 2006, 2 11-year-old girls were severely injured, according to MSU's The Standard, while rushing through a crosswalk on National. This led to an amendment to lower the radius for elementary and middle school eligibility to 1.5 miles to avoid students crossing barrier streets. Part of the classification as a barrier street requires that the street have a speed limit of 45 miles an hour or more. According to the city, 9 out of 10 pedestrians survive being struck by a car at 20 miles per hour. At 30, that number drops to 5 out of 10, and at 40 miles per hour, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians survive being hit by a vehicle. And we are asking our children to cross these streets. And things have not improved. A recent survey in Springfield showed that only 29% of drivers stop for pedestrians at crosswalks. There are also economic and environmental impacts to our city. Not having adequate busing also creates congestion at schools, increasing the number of cars, making it difficult for the buses to navigate the area. Increasing the number of cars on our roads also costs our city money and increases the amount of exhaust during peak commuting times. For every 10 minutes a car idles, it creates about a pound of CO2 emissions, which have been scientifically proven to increase children's risk of asthma and other health impacts as well. Finally, there are significant social and economic impacts on our families. If students aren't expected to bike or walk, that means we are expecting our families to find a way to get their students to and from school. This means that families have to adjust their own schedules, pay someone to transport their student, find a carpool, or ride the city bus. Additionally, this policy encourages students who have only had their license for a few months and are more likely to be involved in an accident to be on the road at peak commuting times and with other students in the car, which can increase chances of having an accident. If, as in the case of my family, someone must take the student, that means that they have to be able to take them in the morning and pick them up at 2:45 in the afternoon, which is often not possible for working families in our city. Getting to school should not be a privilege. Students shouldn't have to jump through additional hoops to find scholarships to be able to get to school. Our current policy increases the amount of traffic, creates logistical problems for parents, has negative environmental ramifications, asks students to walk up to 7 miles a day in all types of weather, and most importantly, unnecessarily sacrifices the safety of our children. I also know that the resources to us are limited, but that together we can come up with out-of-the-box solutions to this problem, such as considering transportation hubs in neighborhood, partnering with CU, and or doing a survey of parents and students to see how they get to and from school and what they would like to see from our transportation policy. But I know all of us here share the same goal of keeping our kids safe, and I hope you will consider how the current transportation policy puts students at risk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Our second speaker is Mike Seaver. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. He actually did everything so good, I think he's probably cut me down to about 2 minutes. So that would be the good thing, I guess, for everyone. But I'm also a parent that's dealing with a lot of the same issues with the bus department, everything going on. I got 2 students at Pershing Middle School. So we're the Glendale group. I have addressed this multiple ways. I'm with the PTA. I'm actually the feeder for the school crossing protection committee. They do a great job, but what they're doing doesn't really pertain to the bus department where it's at today. The guidelines have been set, and it is where it is. But we hit the same issue. It was gonna be an exorbitant amount of money for one child, about $600 a year. I have 2 in middle school, no safe walking route. We're within 1.5 miles, but safe walking routes 1.7 maybe, and it's still not safe. The answer I've been given and I'll fill you in a little bit every direction I've turned. I've reached out to gotta leave names out, I realize that. Traffic department, I've been turned to director of transportation, left multiple messages. Now this was last year, everything's resurfacing again. Left messages, haven't received calls back. Did get a call back from the assistant director who said they don't make the rules, they just have to enforce them. And we were informed their space for our son, it would be $278 per semester. It's gone up a little bit this year. Give me a second here because I'm cutting out names. Left another message, said I would have to speak with the director of transportation, no call back. Called again, received email, no call back. And finally stopped by the board offices last week. I spoke with the board secretary. She said she would also pass the message along. And I guess maybe I wish there would be some gray area, perhaps. This is a big town, a lot of people, a lot of ways to walk to school, a lot of kids. But you push it all aside and it's really just about the safety. You know, I talk to more parents now and my problem's small. I mean, single moms, 4 kids walking across 65 highway to get to Glendale. And the token answer I've gotten is this is a guideline set by the state of Missouri. That's a guideline. It's not a policy. So I took it upon myself and reached out to some of the other bus departments. And we're not all the same. Sorry, back up. North Kansas City, 1 mile or less. I reached out to ones that were comparable to Springfield. Nevada, Missouri is not comparable. Cape Girardeau is not comparable. Kansas City Metro and St. Louis Metro is not. Lindbergh School District, somewhat. I found no one with 1.5 miles to middle school, 3.5 miles to high school. I feel like it's a policy that could be changed. You know, we're doing a lot to provide safety for the kids. Proposition has passed. It's a good deal, but statistically speaking, the odds of a child getting hurt getting to school way exceeds the odds of something happening inside the school. So, I mean, that's what it's really about. That's why I wanted to address with you guys. And appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaver. Okay. Next is our consent agenda, which is items 3.01, 4.01, and 5.01. The recommended action is that the board approve the consent agenda, items 3.01 through 5.01. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Jill, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Denise. Any discussion on the motion? We ready to vote? Let's vote. Are you still reeling from that?
I loved that ladybug story. I'm not over it.
All right, the next item, maybe this will get you over it. The next item is the treasurer's report. And we welcome back to the podium Carol.
I'm not sure how I'll get through this, though, without my friend
Oh, no.
in the audience
Need your
now.
posse.
Yes. So, we have posted for you our standard fare for treasurer's report purposes this month, and we also have a budget amendment and transfer report. So I'll highlight for you some of the key items on that. You'll note that it seems to be a significant amount, but it's primarily focused on the capital fund. And we talked about this during our budget discussions, that any dollars for projects, for capital projects that were left unspent by June 30 of 2019 would roll into this new budget year, because those projects are continuing. So they can include a variety of things. We have parking lots and windows and just you name it. There are projects that are underway. And so the team's done a tremendous job of delivering on those this past year, and they continue to improve their process. But we do need to seek an approval of just over $6 million to increase the capital projects fund. We have some other slight adjustments for your consideration as well relative to revenue for Ready, Set, Supply. There were fundraising efforts to support kids with their back-to-school needs. Additionally, back-to-school foundation grants are included within this budget amendment. And we have some Central High School baseball, softball field updates as well. The debt and bond expenditures for the bond fees are also included in this budget amendment. Beyond that, we continue to maintain that very stable fund balance percentage, and the estimate at this time is 17.7% as of August 9th. And we'll continue to provide you with the best information we have. As you know, our big payroll for the year will be in September, and that brings with it a number of budget realignment that will occur. But for now, we're in great shape, and the team continues to work to finish the fiscal year we just ended and continue to prepare for that payroll this month coming up. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
Questions for Carol? Comments, anything? All right, thank you, Carol. Let's go to the recommended action then, that the board approves the treasurer's report as presented. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Charles. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. We ready to vote? Let's vote. And the ayes have it. The next item is 8.01, which is board policy adoptions and revisions. This is a first read and approval. The board will review and approve this policy annually. Every 2 years, the board-approved policy must be filed with the Missouri Ethics Commission no later than September 15th to be, an update is due for 2019. No other changes are proposed for 2019 and 20. Is there any discussion on this item? The recommended action is that the board adopt all policies as presented. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Charles. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Any discussion on this motion? Ready to vote? Let's vote. Ayes have it. We move to number 9, which is new business. The first of 2 items is 9.01, the sidewalk easement at Wilson's Creek Intermediate, and we welcome to the podium Travis Shaw. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
The city of Battlefield is doing some sidewalk improvements around Wilson's Creek Intermediate, and so they are requesting a real property rights to a sidewalk easement along that campus. Currently, there's a sidewalk that runs on the south part of Wilson's Creek, and so they are wanting to connect the new sidewalk that is west of Wilson's Creek at the southwest corner. And to do that, that sidewalk would give pedestrians a walkway all the way from that Wilson's Creek campus along Weaver Road to State Highway FF, where there's a subdivision that would allow that safe traffic for pedestrians along that way. They're proposing to start this next month, and so in order to do that and to join that along our property, they're requesting that sidewalk easement from the district.
Any comments or questions, Travis? I just have one. Is there any cost to the district on this? Is this just simply a granting of an easement?
Correct. It's
And
just-
we are not paying for the sidewalk or
that is correct. No cost to the district.
anything else?
And it's a good plan.
Yes.
So moved.
Well, let me give the record what you're moving. That the board approve granting an easement for a sidewalk to the city of Battlefield, Missouri on property owned by the district and located adjacent to Wilson's Creek Intermediate. And that the president of the board be authorized and directed to execute the sidewalk easement on behalf of the district. Still?
That was exactly what I was moving.
That's what you would have moved? Okay.
No, I did move it.
Okay, thank you. Jill, and is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charles. Any discussion on the motion? We ready to vote? Let's vote.
I might have said it a little bit shorter.
Yeah, well, I would,
Some lawyer.
yeah. The ayes have it. The next item is 9.02 student fees update, and we welcome Carol back to the podium.
Thank you. We have very minimal changes, and if you looked closely at the document posted, it looks nearly the same as that which you approved at the June 25 meeting. The items in red identify for you the changes that are recommended, and it's mostly additions. I'll talk about a couple of those. One is the technology fee. We're no longer using an outsourced company, basically. So the fees have remained the same. We didn't change that, but for the insurance on devices, that would be something that we'll handle in-house, so that's been modified. And then leaders have ascertained that the state subsidy process is so cumbersome for our parents that the best thing for students and for their families is that we eliminate the state subsidy process and simply provide the reduced rate with regard to the after-school program and before-school programs for Shadydale and Campbell, so for those preschool kids. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, everything else remains the same.
Is it a paperwork burden that makes it unmanageable?
I think it's likely a combination, paperwork and time process. So this seemed to be the best solution for the kids and the parents.
There have been discussions with the parents who would be affected, I presume. by those?
I'm certain of that. Is Jay Anderson in the room? Do you know any specificity on that, Jay? Were parents engaged in this conversation with regard to the state subsidy process being eliminated? Okay, so no conversation with parents, but really the ones that have endured it would have already been through that process. It would be for upcoming
Yeah, sure. Okay.
situations, so that makes sense.
Any other questions or comments for Carol? All right.
Okay.
Carol, you're probably going to just stay
I'm
up
hanging
there.
out.
All right. I guess the one comment I would make is that our speakers tonight spoke to this item, and I'm grateful that the first speaker acknowledged that this is the beginning of a discussion. So while he was speaking to an agenda item tonight, it's nothing that we're going to solve right now. So I'll be voting for this, and I suspect everybody else will too. But I just want the speakers to know that we hear you. Is there any other discussion? If not, the recommended action is that the board approve the updated fees and tuition rates for the 2019-20 school year as presented. Motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Charles. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Jill. We ready to vote? Let's vote. And the ayes have it. And now we go to what we began our meeting with tonight, the ad valorem property tax rates.
Yes. So, as was shared during the tax rate hearing, this evening we are providing you with a recommendation for the tax levy for 2019. The requirement is that we file this with Greene County by September 1st, and that will then establish the tax rates. All taxing jurisdictions do that to provide the tax rates then for those bills that would go out to patrons for the tax bills due by December 31. So this evening, I shared with you that overall, it's been a very favorable year for us, that with this reassessment year, we've experienced a 5.6649% growth in assessed valuation. And it is an odd year, so therefore the reassessment caused that to be larger. We are held down to the consumer price index percentage of 1.9% for the additional revenue on existing property. Our new construction is just under $52 million, $51,961,050, which is a 3.3% increase over the final value that was reported December 2018. And the overall levy that's recommended for our operating levy, the total is 3.4961. We do break that into our teacher fund and our general fund. So there is a percentage applied consistently each year. And the debt service levy, that includes the 9 cents of phase 1 of the 2019 bond issue, increases our levy to 64 cents for debt service. The combined total, 4.1361. Happy to answer any new questions you may have.
Any questions for Carol? This time. All right, I'm going to read this again. This time everybody in the room will have heard it at least 3 times. The recommended action is that the board approves the 2019-2020 tax rate of $1.9229 for the incidental general fund, $1.5732 for the teacher fund, and a 64-cent for the debt service fund, a total levy of $4.1361 per $100 of assessed valuation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alina. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jill. We ready to vote? Let's vote. Ayes have it, and the rates are established. Next item is 10.02, the M66 proposed rule, and this is a discussion regarding the draft M66 standards. And we want to, while the entire set of standards were sent to you, we want to focus on any kind of comments or observations that this board may have regarding the first part of the standards, and that is on leadership. These were sent out ahead of time, as I said, and this is just a board discussion. Now, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind taking notes on what was said, because there may be items that we want to forward on to the powers that be. John, is there any start you want to?
Kind of a holistic process understanding of MSIP. So Missouri School Improvement Process, it's been around for decades. This is version 6, that the proposed rule has been approved by the State Board of Education. Once it's approved, it goes to public comment period, and we are in that period. It actually takes 2 years from board approval for it to have full implementation, because it gives districts time to gear up to meet the proposed standards. We are typically, it's about a 5-year process. So if you went actually and pulled back the MSIP 5 guidelines, they were actually published in 2013, and that's kind of when MSIP 5 started. So we would have thought we would have been here a couple years ago, and we were actually on the timeline a couple years ago, because the MSIP 6 group that started to build these standards, a Review 5, started that review process a couple of years ago, but it was stalled out through DESE issues with the governor, transition in leadership, transitional leadership, not a functioning state board, all the things that we know that played out. So once we have a now functioning state board, a commissioner back at the helm, they are moving the process forward. So it's been a little delayed, as not as quick as what we would have expected, but I think the relevant conversations are still important. I would tell you that in the process, the department builds stakeholder groups early on. It's a statewide group of parents, business leaders, educators, school administrators, school board members that were part of a process to review this a couple years ago that built this recommendation. Then it goes to the department for review, and then it goes to the state board for their approval to push to public comment. Jay Anderson, myself, and Jessica Wagner from SBS all served as representatives on that initial committee. We didn't review every standard because they would subcommittee that out. As you can imagine, it's a large document with lots of different working areas. I would just in general say that resource and process standards are a core component. If you go back and look at MSIP 5 and you look at MSIP 6, probably even more movement to process in MSIP 6, because quality processes, the state believes, and I think that was the feedback, result in quality product, and then leave the resource discussion to the districts, local flexibility about how they deploy their resources. If you went back to MSIP 1, it was really just about resources. It was about how many people do you have and where do you put them, and then what do you spend on books and those kind of things. How many do you have in the libraries? I used to count that, right? I mean, you used to turn in that kind of number. They went away from just pure resource to more process, and I think this set of rules goes even more process, but it also expands into some of the areas that I think we've missed in maybe previous cycles, that the field is telling us that we need social-emotional, we need resource review, we need to expect that all systems have a formative assessment system built in, and that's a resource or a process standard now. Also gets into workforce development. As you can imagine, the current conversation across our state 2 years ago was that, and it gets here and it talks about partnerships and expansions of programming in those areas. So that's holistically kind of where we are. It's open for public comment from individuals. So if you give us information, we will submit that on behalf of the board, but you are welcome individually to comment. It's the whole state of Missouri is open for that review of that document. So just tossing it out. There were governance components before. They've kind of shifted those around to leadership and governance and kind of restructured those a little bit. But those are the ones that directly impact the board, but they obviously impact the district because they set an expectation of what you do as board members. So kind of sets the stage. Any feedback that you have, we'll capture and then kind of move from there.
Who wants to start?
Just to clarify the context, thanks for sharing the historical context to both us and the public. And so is it my understanding that the school board leadership component of M6, of the 6th version, is new-ish?
If you go to MSIP 5, there are governance components, right, in the back, and they are G, right? So if you go back, governance was in MSIP 5, and you don't have the MSIP 5 in front of you.
Yeah.
But it's actually moved to the front, and it's kind of built around governance and leadership and combining the two instead of just a governance structure. Okay. So there were standards in the previous one, but they've been kind of assessed, just like every section gets looked at. I would say that they're more specific on some process things that they expect out of board and setting kind of a higher bar for boards and how they perform. I don't know, Jerry, from...
That's why it's the first one.
Yeah, and it starts with that.
They
right?
specifically, the state board asked to make it the first performance standard.
Right.
was leadership and governance. for the
Before,
most
it was
part.
actually the
I'll start
last.
there. What?
It was last, before, it
Yeah,
was at the
was
end of the,
last.
it was, by the way, now it kind of says it matters to start with the governance structure and what the expectations of our boards are, so.
I have some comments, but I'm, Jerry or
The
Charles.
other
or-
thing that I will just add to provide one more piece of context that, and then let you keep going, sorry, is this is kind of a next step, but the thing that happens after this is a scoring guide gets built off of this. Okay? And the scoring guide becomes the component that accreditation is delivered through, right? So,
Scores it.
so DESE, right? So department builds processes to develop the scoring guide, and they build the scoring guide with review from the state board. So that process is what feeds our current APRs, right? So the APRs that we get every year right now are MSIP 5 connected. What you'll notice, the APRs don't represent all the standards, right? So there's also things that you're expected to sign off on that are state statutory that you say, yes, we do that. But DESE doesn't come checking for the process standards or the resource standards in general unless you have an APR issue. Right? So then they come in and do review. In previous iterations, there was also site visits as a regular part of MSIPs where they would come on site every 5 years to dive in, identify highlights of practice and concerns in practice. So that process kind of died with budgetary restrictions. I would say it does exist still in most other accrediting bodies, right? Healthcare, higher ed, all of the, I think, utilities probably still has many of those structures. So that's a structure that still exists, and it exists in other states. But Missouri kind of walked away from that when budgetary limitations. So there is a discussion about whether that will be part of this process, a reigniting of site visits and collaboration among districts. But the scoring guide will be the next real development after this gets through. So
That's the real question, is that how?
and that's where the rubber meets the road. This kind of sets the framework, but as you can imagine, they're not going to give a point for every one of these standards, right? And then go check it.
That
right?
was one of my
Right.
thoughts.
At least they never have. I mean, but what they will do is pick the things that they think are most important, and they'll put a scoring system around that, and that will become the accreditation system.
My general sense of it is, and like a number of us, I work in an industry well known for the clarity and economy of expression, right? And it kind of screams that it was written by a committee in some way, right?
It was written by what?
By committee, right? It's a document written by committee, and that's altogether a good thing. But I think there's some quirky things. I mean, Kathy just mentioned, for example, L1B, which is the most important thing in here, that the board ensures academic preparation, individual support of each student, doesn't fit where it's at. I mean, it's radically different than anything else that falls in there. I mean, that's one of those sort of weird, overtended things. And I'm working on accreditation reports, right?
Yes,
So that's,
yes.
Kind of live the.
that's my excuse, right?
And exactly how would you, in fact, measure
Yeah,
that?
I mean,
That's very that statement
individual.
sounds noble, but it's very difficult to
and
measure.
it's the thing that everything else,
Hangs off of.
that's precisely.
And there's no way we can ensure
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All we can do is provide the resources, and for that to happen, we cannot, I don't like the word ensure anyway, through the whole document. Insurers, because there's no insurance, it needs to be written a little bit differently with that, because the board can't ensure that that's gonna happen. All we can do is provide resources, support,
We can endeavor.
we can,
But we can't ensure.
we can't ensure that.
Now we're
Now
gonna
we're
add
the
to the
weeds.
committee.
Yeah,
No,
no,
no, no.
Charles is
This
gonna
is
be
your
here for
world,
2
isn't it,
hours.
Charles?
Yeah.
Charles getting
gonna
excited
be
now.
in the weeds for 2 hours on word.
Um,
So Kathy got that B is in the wrong place.
Maybe out of place.
And the
concerned
word
with the word
ensure in
ensure.
general
So
is.
those are the two things I got so far.
Okay.
I would have one comment, and that's pretty much throughout. I have a concern about where it says local board, that it should be governing board, because I think it needs to apply to charter schools too. Because if you say local board, it doesn't apply to charter schools. So I think
They're not
there's a
intended to be local.
terminology there that's just a term, it's
The language
semantics,
matters.
and I think local board says a different thing
But
than
it's
governing
significant.
board.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
What else?
I might also suggest that they modify data which they use. We have to use data, et cetera, and that's altogether correct. et cetera, but I would say multiple forms of data. It seems a little simple, like that a number somehow means something, and the data never speak for themselves, they've got to be spoken for. So I think a variety of sources of data in terms of student achievement or whatever else we're measuring, we need to have multiple measures of various kinds.
Are you just gonna go down on one to one, or?
Yeah, just keep going.
shotgun?
I mean, this just,
Just capturing, because we didn't know who's gonna have what standard or whatever, so just if you've got them, and again, you can, feel free to submit individually, but if
think
you
you
want
should
it to be
scan
part of
Charles's
the
sheets in.
board, we can send the whole document in if you want. But yeah, keep on
If
coming.
you're shooting, and I hate jumping like L3, the continuous school improvement, CSIP, it talks about local boards annually adopt and administration implements the CSIP. I'm not sure that we want to spend the time to adopt one every year as opposed to review it every year. I mean, I think that's the intent, is not that you redo the CSIP every year, but the board should be looking at it every year, and however often the board decide, or the board and staff determines what that process is. I do think they should look at it every year, just to keep it out and be reviewed as opposed to annually adopt. That's just,
And this is more a question than a complaint, and that is not even really a complaint, but I presume there are ratios for adequate teacher or student-teacher ratios elsewhere in the standards. The only two that appear here are for administrative staffing, assistant, associate, superintendents, based on the number of certificated folks, and principal building ratios.
You just have the leadership and governance directions, and we'll have counseling ratios, library staffing ratios, teaching ratios, that are throughout the rest of the document, yeah.
and question, building on that one.
And none of those have changed from MSIP 5. So, if you go look at each one of those graphs from MSIP 5, the same graphs have transferred to MSIP 6. The only thing that's added is a pre-K, student-teacher ratio, since the state's now funding pre-K at a level, so.
Following up what Charles talked about, and it's kind of follows throughout the whole thing where it says local board administration. I mean, should that be local board, or governing board and superintendent? Because administration doesn't report to us. Only the superintendent reports to us, so I don't know what that definition of administration means. If they're talking about superintendent, fine. But I don't know, that would imply that you're talking about staff underneath you, and that's not where we need to be going. So if that needs to be superintendent as opposed to administration, that's throughout it's all over the place in here, that it says administration. I just think it needs to be clear that we don't go past the
I guess
superintendent.
we need to frame this, that these are comments from a board member's perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very true.
We'll submit them from USPS.
What else?
Charles, did that answer your question on the ratios? Those all exist.
Yeah, I think symbolically that they appear here, if this is number one, if you front-loaded.
Right.
Symbolically, it doesn't really work, but I understand.
Denise, you had something?
Yeah, on communication, L8, board administration provides for two-way, reliable, and representative communication with all stakeholders. Okay, so good. Then A, approves a communication plan that outlines multiple methods for two-way, reliable communication. So they kind of repeat that. It's implemented and annually reviewed. And then B comes back and says, kind of the same thing, the local board administration regularly communicates to all stakeholders. So we've already said that once, twice. And then the piece, though, there is in the attainment of the mission and vision using relevant data. So I don't know if that's kind of a repetitive. We're repeating what we're trying to do there in terms of we want to have good, open, two-way, reliable communication. And I don't know if they're throwing in the mission and vision just to have an A and a B there. And the mission,
Kind of
vision.
rule of thumb, you can't have a.
Yeah, you can't just have an A.
Yeah, you gotta have a.
You gotta have an A and a
We've
B.
all been
Charles,
on
is that in there?
committees.
Thank you.
Committee work.
Right,
So-
Charles.
That perhaps back, because they talk about mission and vision in
Ahead.
L1A,
Yeah.
so maybe put it there. I don't know. I just thought that as I was reading, I was like, okay, I get it. Oh, okay, I get it again. Oh, okay, I get it again. So that's just kind of something to look at. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, I've been very familiar with MSIPs and have MSIPs and prepared for MSIP reviews and gathered documentation a number of times. And looking over this, I don't see anything that really is problematic. However, what I see is this really going to be a challenge for someone, whoever that someone is this scorecard, and how many of these things can be measured. There's some great things in there, and I see them as absolutely terrific goals, especially for our students. I do, and I know in years of writing curriculum and writing goals and you know, all the wonderful things we want students to do, but it was always then the catch was, now how will we know if they do that? And I think when it gets to the past professional learning, and maybe I wasn't supposed to look at all this, but I like looking at it. One of the is about students will show work ethic. Okay, so how are they going to measure that, and how will we be held accountable, and what would a scoring guide look like for that students?
And the students demonstrate work ethic and
Work
character.
ethic and character.
How will the state monitor
How
that?
will they, well,
Assess
so are
that.
they come in and sit in some of our classrooms and see our kids on a 1 week, 1 day visit? I mean, so those are the things for me, having been in the classroom, in a building, in a department. I'm looking at this thinking, oh, how will we hold folks accountable?
Yeah, this is.
And
just-
should they be?
This is filled with a lot of good stuff.
Yes, it's excellent goals, but
But when the rubber meets the road, what do you do
Yeah.
with that good stuff?
yeah.
That they can become platitudes.
Yeah, because it was always, you know, students will develop an appreciation for living things. That was always a great one. Okay, well, how are we going to know when they've done that? So I kind of see a little bit of that. That's what I-
Other comments?
I just have a couple, and it's extending on maybe what some of my fellow board members are already saying, but, I mean, I guess I would applaud them for at least putting governance and leadership at the top and trickling down, so, and I also know that I think the intent is to spur on boards to get organized and provide accountability, and so, overall, the global picture, I love having accountability. And I would add that when I look at these, while we could wordsmith away and while we could look for different words and that type of thing, I mean, to me, I look at this and I see we are a high-functioning board with very clear strategic plan that we continue to modify, and knowing what our board practices are, I see us already demonstrating most of this. And so, to me, it's not a threat by any means. It's more of a, great, let us demonstrate what we're doing so that more people can know all the things that we are in fact doing. I think the biggest challenge, as I've set in on accreditation reviews, to me is this is all very noble and a great vision and great, you know, outputs, but I think the concern for me is how do you measure it? And is it a review process where, just like an accreditation review, where you submit all of your answers for, here's where you can find this, demonstrate it. You can go to here on our strategic plan, you can go here on our website, you can go here, and just what we teach in our district is, it's not just a scorecard. You demonstrate your learning through a variety of different ways. And so I would be an advocate of making sure that we can demonstrate our learning and our output as a board through multiple ways. So that's kind of the biggest question mark for me. The other question that I have is, who will get to serve from our board, representing our voice or the voice of other boards, moving towards that next segment?
So, two things. Number one, great point on the big picture of both you and Denise on how to exhibit this, right? Because the thing for us to keep in mind is we are the largest school district in the state of Missouri. There are 560 LEAs, right? So about 40 of those are charters. The rest of them are actual school districts, right? Local boards of education. They range from under 100 kids to us. So I can't imagine being in a world of trying to exhibit this in a district of 100 students, right? Because there's a lot of efforts that you would have to come to exhibit that. So So I think that's one of the challenges. That's why they go to a simplified scorecard that, goes down to bare bone metrics. Sometimes that oversimplifies things. So I think, to your point, and everybody thinking here, the next step's really crucial. And I can't answer number 2 because I don't know the answer to that. That process is yet to be kind of rolled out publicly. The departments use multiple different processes over the years to really develop scorecards or APR guidelines. And that's not a one-time thing. They normally review it annually and say, all right, this didn't work very well for districts, or it's not serving our kids best. So they'll start with the framework, and then it typically modifies a little bit over the time of the MSIP. So I don't know the answer to number 2. So I think that's something for us to engage in when we go to MSBA. And
Yeah, we've got
we'll have the state board members
a
there.
whole team going through the 30 pages. I mean, it is mind-boggling. And it's not perfect. There's a lot of, it is basically what Charles said is, a committee put together this, and there's a lot of duplication, a lot of overlap in the standards. And so, in fact, we met on it today, and it's just lots and lots of stuff that needs to be, because nobody knows what the next shoe to fall is of what now, once you get it done. Because I've got a couple other comments that I think take issue with. One is the L4F requiring or ensuring an annual audit. State law doesn't require districts, I don't think, to have an annual audit. Every other year, I think, is a requirement. We do every year, but not necessarily every district may not. They don't have to do it every year. I don't know that we want to dictate and change statute through MSIP to change the law to do that. So it's just wording more than anything. I think it's a best practice to do an annual audit, absolutely. But statute doesn't support that.
Yeah, to compel them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different issue than MSIP. And the other one.
That's a good question then. So did the committee
It says
overlay it
insurers.
over?
I mean, that's a legal question that's way above my pay grade.
What previous versions is they kind of say, all right, here are the state requirements. Because every year statutorily, there may be a law passed. And then they kind of put that in the guidelines to say, don't forget this. And you either have to send in assurances, or you have to prove that process. And then they overlay that into the MSIP guidelines. So can't know if they went beyond those, right? At one point, there was reference to the state statutes, right? I think during one of the versions of this is statutorily required. This is statutorily, this is the statute that it connects to. It's not in this draft, but it's in
What else, Jerry? Got anything else?
The last one was on the school safety down at the bottom. The health care classes. 10F, it talks about school systems ensures access to a state school violence reporting system, which is all fine and good. I just think that needs to be reworded because Springfield has our own tip line, but the state has one also. And so we work together with the school, but I don't think MSIP wants to say you will, and Springfield does have access to it, absolutely, they can use it. But I don't think MSIP should dictate
Exactly.
you will do that one to do that. That's a local decision. And making sure that you can do that, that's fine. But I don't want any indication that we're forcing somebody to take a route or do something that should be a local level decision. Like John said, just, tell us what you want to do and let us figure out how to do it. To me, that's something that's kind of maybe going over to the other one. And the last one, then I'll shut up, was in that same section B, where it talks about designated school safety coordinator. It says employs a school safety coordinator. Sometimes districts use an SRO that is an employee of a sheriff's department or a police department as their safety coordinator. So while I think philosophically I'd rather have them be an employee as a safety coordinator, that's not going to happen in districts.
Particularly these 100 students.
Exactly.
and
In a rural area where they've
200
got,
student, yeah.
they're using, heavily relying on a local police department or sheriff. I don't want to dictate that they got to go hire somebody, but, even though I think that's the best practice, it's not going to happen. It can't. So I don't want that to dictate that you have to make, I don't want MSIP 6 to make your decisions for you. as a board. We should make our own decisions, not said, here, you have to do this.
Which one was that in, Jerry?
L10.
L10,
L10.
B.
L10.
And that's just more, that's a semantic employee. I think that was,
I get
our
that.
intent was to do that.
Charles, you got any more?
No.
You good?
Amazingly enough, I'm good, yeah.
Alina?
So, no, I don't, just other than the next steps, so once the feedback is given, do they put out a revised draft for additional feedback,
I
or is
think
the?
their actual requirement is to respond to the feedback, right? So that'll take a process, and actually, I think they have to, they may have to respond to every comment, as required. They collect it, then they respond to the feedback, and then the board considers the feedback. So the feedback will be presented to the state board by the department, this is what we collected, and then they will decide, adopt as is and proceed, or make modifications. And then after that, the process begins to build the scoring guide, step. And again, the good news is, they can't hold districts accountable for these standards for 2 years, so that districts have an understanding of what scoring guide will be, because that's gonna take some time, as well as, what state standards are.
So, two things. One, so it sounds like what we're gonna put together is, these are suggestions with another column that says rationale, that is explaining
That
why.
explains why
Because
we
sometimes
made
we're
this, yep.
defending smaller districts that they may be like, why is that, that doesn't affect
We
you, but.
understand, right, give the context, right.
And then two, I just lost my train of thought.
We'll certainly
Oh,
be-
can we still, if we have any more feedback, what is our deadline if anybody wants to give more in the weeds feedback?
31st.
Yeah, 31st is directly to them. If you wanted to go through
Right.
me, then I would say.
Now.
no, Yeah.
It's today, the 20th. I just was wondering if
Yeah, yeah,
anybody
you
didn't
can-
have time to go through it.
You can, by end of day next Monday, and I'll just plan to submit on Tuesday, so. Yeah. So feel free to get it through, you can send it straight to Kathy, or to me, and we'll put that all together and submit next Tuesday.
Denise, you're,
Well, it is a tremendous amount of work, so I mean,
Amend.
it's very easy for us to look at and go, they did this and that, but that's a lot of work.
It is.
Tremendous amount of work, so, and it is, it's a
just
good place to
a
start,
lot.
and then I appreciate that they are asking for our input, and we'll see if there's any changes.
Should we give them any positive feedback?
It's a lot of work.
They said.
I'm serious.
Actually, the comment was, feel free, but we have to respond to that comment, I mean, so.
Okay, do they only
So
want to
no.
critique?
Yeah.
Do they only
More
want to
work for them
critique?
to say,
We
even
invite
good
your
jobs.
feedback, but not really.
This isn't an employee evaluation where you have to say a couple nice things.
No comment is a supportive comment.
That's it.
And we're ready.
Jill, you
to-
got anything? Are you good?
No, thank
All right.
you.
And I am too, but I do want to say, Jerry, thank you for reminding the board initially of this. And I think it's good that we do speak up on these kind of things, because this is what we're, either this board or a future board is going to have to live under. So, good stuff. Thank you. Are we ready to go to the next agenda
Yes.
item? Let's go to 11.01, the bond.
Travis, part two.
The bond quarterly update. And we welcome back Travis.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be back here again, providing you with an update on the bond projects. Last time I was here to give an update was back in April, so we're going to try to get this on a regular schedule for every 3 months. So as we go through the slides, there's going to be some of these things that you've seen, but also some things that I want to remind you about the process moving forward. So tonight we'll go through the facility planning that's taken place. We'll talk about the process and timeline of the 7 different projects that you see up there, as well as next steps moving forward. So it doesn't seem possible, but 15 months ago, you all voted to form the Community Task Force on Facilities. And so as part of that process through the summer, the task force met to look at all of the information from the architects. In October, they brought to you the recommendation of their projects that they felt were the high priority and the second and third priority. In November, you all voted to place this on the ballot. In December, architects began their work designing all of these projects. And in April, we got to celebrate when the community voted to move this work forward. So here we are now in August. As a reminder, this was a sequencing plan that we put together. The highlight of this in green are the projects that, as far as the plan went, were to be under construction. And as you will see, we are right on track in August with secure entrances. The Southwest Early Childhood Center, Delaware, will have our groundbreaking, and Sunshine right behind that. So right on track with the timeline that with our projects. As a reminder, the design process has followed a very sequential plan. We had the facility program established many months ago with the architects. The project cost estimates were given, which helped us to give that information to the community task force. We have site level kickoff meetings for each of these with the architects and the teams that were represented from SPS. We go through a schematic design process, which is essentially the rough concepts and review of what's going to make these projects successful. A lot of that stems back to our strategic plan. And then going into design development, which is where we gather that input from teachers, which we've been able to do on every one of these projects. And then we get that project detail solidified, which then turns into construction documents, which takes about the same amount of time as what schematic and design development combined do. So an update on secure entrances. The highlighted sites represent the secure entrances that we're currently working on and under construction. We do have 17 sites and 19 different entrances at those sites. The other 14, as you know, we kind of had delayed and pulled back a little bit due to some saturation marketing, some pricing, and so I'll have an update here in just a few. I think this next slide will give you that highlight. So right now, Parkview Central and Studi, they're in the final stages of construction and should finish up within the next couple of weeks. Bingham, Bissett, Robertson, Roundtree, York, and the former Sherwood site will be completed hopefully mid-September. Pershing, Carver, Wilsons Creek, Phelps, Jarrett, Pipkin, Pleasant View, and Reed will be finished up, should be in mid-November. The 14 that you see on the bottom, those will go out to bid this fall with the plan for construction to be done by summer as long as everything goes as planned. Now remember, on the sequencing plan, we scheduled 24 months for construction of secure entrances, so if we get finished by summer of 2020, we'll be ahead of that by almost a year. So good schedule there. Pictures of secure entrances. Doesn't look very secure at the time, but this is York Elementary. But what I want to highlight to this is when we go in and retrofit these secure entrances, we're not just going in and putting a couple doors in and calling it good. Many of these sites were not designed for this type of construction. So it tends to be a redesign of the space to make it functional at the entrance, but then the rest of the site has to be functional as well. And so when you think back at 30 plus sites, that's why we look at $7.8 million to be able to accomplish this, because it's not just a quick, easy fix. This is a former Sherwood site, which, as you know, is housing our Delaware students this fall and spring. This is at Pleasant View. They've had to really go in and recreate that space. Central High School, this is early in the stages of construction, and we're pleased to be able to show you what the completed Central High School, they did an amazing job of blending that architectural and historical integrity of the building. So wonderful work by the team that did that. And then this is a back entrance at Parkview, the north side. You can see where they built that in and did a great job of making it look like it's always been there. So excited about that, and for our students and staff and making safer schools. So Southwest Early Childhood Center, as a reminder, this is the aerial. Carver sits up to the top right of the screen, and we see the car lane that comes in around. From a timeline standpoint, design development took place April through May. We did have the bid opening back on the 16th of July with the approval of the board at a special meeting on the 24th. One of the things that I want to clarify with budgeting that we get some misunderstanding is we do have a total project budget, which was what was presented out to the community when we did all of our bond presentations. And so this project was $12.69 million. And then we have construction cost estimates that we keep that were provided to us from the architects, which is the $10,070,843. So when we get bids that come in, that is the bid that comes in as the construction bid. It's not the total project bid. The total project bid has a lot of other things that you see in the bond update financial report that has architectural and engineering fees, some of the things that I'll be presenting after the presentation. And so that bid was $9,332,500, so well under the construction budget. Construction has begun. I actually got a text just a couple days ago after this had been posted that ground is actually broken. We've got machines out on site and doing the work, and so we're pleased to see that. And so the construction completion is scheduled for the 24th of July of next year, and we do have a start date of school. We know that it can't be any earlier than the 24th due to the law that was passed. So we had a great groundbreaking ceremony that
was hot.
many of you, it was very hot. I took that hat off and the sweat just went so, but we also were joined by our friends of SBS, which was a great opportunity for all of them. This is the front view of the Early Childhood Center sitting out on the Carver Middle School site. As a reminder, the floor plan, the blue, if you can't see that, represents classrooms. We've got activity space in the orange color, the office there to the left when you come in. The lower level, again, more classrooms. We've got the storm shelter in the kind of pinkish color, which is in the music art area. And then we've got activity space and PE space down there as well. So great facility for our pre-K kids. Delaware Elementary, you've seen this view before, the aerial view. So we have car queuing that comes off of Delaware and it loops around, as well as bus looping on the back. That's one thing we always try to do if possible, is to keep those separate. It keeps from congestion. As we all know, Delaware is a high busing school, and so we've got more buses there than probably any other elementary site. That design development was May through June. We did have the bid opening this month on the 6th. You approved that bid back on the 14th last week. And again, the project budget total as well as the construction estimate, this one was well under budget, as you can see at $15,393,000. And they will begin construction next week and finishing that up August 1st with school starting on the 24th. Just a few pictures of the demolition, which started back on July 15th. It took about a month to get it all down. I got a text from Stephanie Young. She said on the way home from the board meeting, she said, just for fun, I went by and she said, why was the old tattered greenhouse still standing? And I said, well, for whatever reason, that's part of the GC bid, so they'll take care of it when they come in. So if you're out at the groundbreaking, you're still going to see that. We'll make sure we don't get pictures in front of the greenhouse.
But it looks weird. It's, the only thing left is the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then there's this pile of dirt. It's
So they did a great job of getting to that and getting it taken care of. So front entrance of Delaware. Sorry. Floor plan, the light color is our classrooms. Our darker brown, those are the special education classrooms. Again, we have a storm shelter gymnasium that's provided, community room, art room, great cafeteria space. So a great site for our kids. It will really be much more expansive than what they're currently working in. Sunshine Elementary. Again, here's the aerial view of Sunshine. This is a renovation with an addition. The tan on the lower part represents the existing building. The gray represents the new addition. The bus loop will come off Jefferson on the west side of the building, and we have a large car looping which will give plenty of room to have all of our cars off of Jefferson and not worry about them getting out onto Sunshine. This timeline, again, much like Delaware, May through June on design development. We did have the bid opening last week, and this is one of the items that I will be bringing for you just a little bit later for recommendation. That project total is 13.89 with a construction estimate of $11,571,000, and the bid that we did get to come in was $11,189,000. So again, we're under budget on this project. And that one will begin construction on September 3rd with a completion date of August 1st as well. This is a view from Jefferson. The architects did a great job of blending the new with the old. I'm really excited to see this project come to fruition. Floor plan, again, the dotted section represents the existing building, and then the part to the north represents all of the new addition. So classrooms, storm shelter, gymnasium, all of the things that we have communicated would be in our plans, and excited to get these to reality.
Rose, can you point out the old gym?
The old gym is actually where the art collaboration space is.
Yeah, can you point to that? I mean, I know in the building where it is. So,
Right there.
so just look at the difference. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I think the kitchen space for our program was actually bigger than what the all-purpose room was
Yeah.
in the current facility. Yeah. So, yep, much better space.
It's really exciting, and you do a good job of explaining it, because this is not my strong suit, and I feel like I understand when you talk about it.
So Boyd Elementary, this one is, we are currently in design development right now. As a reminder, this is our current site. We only have 1.49 acres, and you can see there's no parking. It's very limited play space, modular on the facility. The future site encompasses 3.1 acres, and so you'll see that along Division, between Division, Locust, and North Sherman runs in between that, and we are in that process of having the work with the city and vacation of Sherman Avenue. So this is the first aerial view that you've gotten to see of the new Boyd Elementary. And so you'll see that Boyd does have a pre-K 5-classroom hub in it, and so we were able to provide some play space just for those kids at the top, and then play space on the east side. The car traffic will come in from the north on East Locust, loop around. You may be wondering, why do we have such a long car loop area? There's actually requirements by the city that you have to be able to queue one car for every 10 student capacity on your campus.
What did you refer to? That's a city ordinance?
And so so 350 capacity building, we have to be able to put 35 cars on campus. So
Just learned something new.
Car line.
I'm
I
not
did too
gonna
through the
ask all
process.
I
questions
just
that are
learned something
going through
new.
my mind.
we have very few buses on this project. Those will come off of Division and drop off on the west side and be able to enter in from a separate place.
Wow.
This is another aerial view of the project. Sits right in the middle of Midtown, and what a great improvement that this school will be for that area.
How terrific.
Nice.
So design development will actually finish up this week, and we are already underway with the asbestos abatement on some of the properties that we purchased that had some asbestos siding on the house, and now we're currently in the Berry building getting rid of that asbestos, and then the actual demolition should begin in October. Anticipated bid opening December with a board recommendation in January. This project is a $20 million project with construction of a little over $16 million. And so we anticipate construction in January and finishing up the following year.
If I was somebody participating in the demolitions you've been describing and the weather that we're having right now, that would sound lovely to me.
So will you move in, start a school?
Everything goes as planned, that would be the plan. And there's an asterisk there.
I understand.
If everything goes as planned, so.
The news is we have a window on that one because nothing's
Yeah.
pressing to get into full.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, nothing's
The other
pressing.
ones that have a, domino effect.
Yeah.
I believe we'll
less
beat that.
pressure. This one not.
This project has the most flexibility of any of them.
We'll keep that.
So this is a southeast corner view of it. Again, a lot of work and time has been put into really making the design fit as best as possible within that midtown region. A view from the southwest corner, and so you can see kind of from the back. We don't have anything from the other side at this point, but it's a beautiful building and will be a great facility for the students and
Like
staff there.
Exciting.
Floor plan, it is a 2-level floor plan, so the main level, as you see on the left, the light colored again is our classrooms. The pre-K sits at the top, and then we've got library in between with classrooms, community room, office space. The main entrance to the building will be directly off of Division. And you've got your storm shelter gymnasium, as we see in the others, and the music space along with that stage. Upper level art and collaborative spaces, as well as your upper grade level classrooms. Jarrett Middle School, we are early on in this project, actually currently in schematic design right now, so design development begins in October. This one will have a similar demolition timeline that we've had at Delaware. As soon as Portland finishes school, we will go in and begin the asbestos abatement because it has it just like Delaware does. Demolition will follow after that. Bids will go out, and then construction will begin in August. And so that's a 2-year process for construction, about a year long for design. Dake Wells Architecture is doing this project. This is the biggest one that we've got on the list of $41 million. It'll be a middle school that houses 725 kids. So it's a great design up to this point. So I'm excited to be able to bring to you in 3 months what this one looks like, where we are in that design development process. So Hillcrest has a similar timeline as October to December as far as design development. And again, the anticipated bid opening. Remember that this one is a different project, that we are utilizing construction management at risk for this project. The total project on this phase 1 of Hillcrest renovation, $24,750,000. That construction again anticipated in August of 2020. One of the things that has been different with this process is we did have a collaborative meeting. This is just a snapshot of it, that we spent 5 hours together with Navajo's Construction, with Buxton Cubic Dot, and with members of SPS, and really establishing the norms of what this collaborative relationship has to look like in order to make this successful. And so we talked about pet peeves. We talked about the things that were non-negotiables. We talked about the things that we wanted out of it. We actually spent time in an activity creating a mission as a construction team and what we wanted this project, that goal that we wanted. And so this is just the mission that the project construction team came up with, to design and construct an excellent learning environment with a collaborative and transformative design for college and career readiness that exceeds the needs of Hillcrest and instills pride in the community. And so ultimately, if we're able to achieve that through the construction process, then it's been a win, and we know that it's going to create an amazing facility for our kids in that community, in that area.
And this is still not quite as great as the Ladybug story, but it's awesome. All right,
That was hard to beat.
It was,
I
and
know.
I know you probably can't get there.
I thought there'd be enough
Trying.
time in between that you'd forget about that.
No, I remember. Oh, boy, I remember.
So next steps, in September next month, we'll bring a recommendation to approve an architect for the Williams Elementary renovation project. October, that design will begin. Remember, that one's got an early childhood hub on it as well. And then also plan to have the remaining secure entrances go out to bid, and then get the construction going on those in December, so that we can get a jump start over the break and finish that up in the summer of next year. So, any questions that I can answer for you? Anything that you would need cleared up?
Questions or clarifications for Travis?
Some comments, but not.
Go ahead. Offer those comments.
Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I took some notes, but, so, first of all, we as a board asked for quarterly reports, and we are getting quarterly reports. So, thank you. I believe it's critical. We were all advocates, along with our community members, out rallying the vote, and we said we were gonna demonstrate accountability as board members and as a community for communicating updates, and we are demonstrating that. So thank you. Thank you, John, and your team. I want to make sure people know that on sps.org/progress, you can get all of these updates. And so I know, Stephen, you're pushing forward this information just for the general public to know that. I also just want to applaud my fellow board members who are demonstrating engagement and accountability to our community by showing up for multiple special meetings, rearranging your schedules to keep these projects on time, because we have told our community we're going to do that. And so I applaud your efforts. I loved hearing Missy Riley, the Director of Early Childhood, at the groundbreaking ceremony talk about how excited she is and how her team of leaders and teachers were a part of the collaborating design of early childhood. And that is, again, what we said we were going to do, to have that kind of input, and to see it and to hear it from them, and their passion and excitement is just so rewarding. And so just to make sure, in summary, we are on time, under budget, and demonstrating accountability. Would you say that those statements are accurate?
That is accurate.
And yeah, this is exciting. Very, very proud.
Anything else? Couldn't agree more with what you said. Thank you, Elena.
Well, I have to add one thing. That's the first time I've ever gone to an event where we put our foot on a shovel and start digging, and I'm wearing different shoes next time. I'm serious, that was a mistake.
Learning it.
Yeah, closed-toed.
That's a learning curve, it was a mistake. You
Closed-toed.
could have told me, but you didn't, that's okay, that's okay, I got myself.
Well, it's really hard for me to believe that a year ago, Tim, was it a year ago we started? Was it just a year ago?
It was 18,
More
it was
Was it June? Well, okay, so
summer camp.
June.
Summer camp.
We started our community task force meetings, or have I slept
We were in
a
the
year?
thick of it a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago. We were in the middle of those meetings every other Thursday night. And to think that from there, we are here, that just doesn't happen this quickly in a district this size. So, I mean, and all the people that contributed time to be on that committee, and then Yes on S, and then Friends of SPS, and everything that we've got to this point is just, I mean, really, it's amazing. I know I use that word a lot, but really, it's mind-boggling.
You can sense that this has been moved forward by the momentum of all those efforts, the momentum of the community effort to get us to this point. And so it's not just happening at the table, but you can feel the whole community just moving forward with this. Very gratifying.
And when I'm in the community, the people that ask, well, where are you on that process? And they're anxious and excited. Well, when's this going to be ready? And when's that? Well, hang on. We're just doing this. And then again, we have to give a tremendous amount of credit to our staff, to the staff and all the work in addition to making sure all our kids get to school and everything's there for them to school. On the side, they're also working in your office, Carol and Travis, and all your people are also working to have all this. It's like 2 jobs, maybe 3 or 4 jobs on top of what
He's
you
not going to
do.
comment, yeah.
So, yeah, he's just being very cool about
Part of
it.
the job.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just, gosh, that's why I was just sitting here thinking, well, just a little over a year ago, we started this process, and to be here.
Well, we've got more work to do in the coming months, but even tonight. What we have are some matters of business that need our vote. And so are we ready to go to those items? All right, let's go to the first, the first one of those, which is change orders. Travis, you want to walk us through that, please?
Sure. So you've got in front of you several change orders. All but one are directly related to secure entrances. So a common thread that you'll see in the entrances that were part of package 3, there was, we put 2 layers of the security film on all of the glass. One was the main security film that was the resistant film, but the other one basically is used to encompass the glass so that if it is hit against the glass doesn't fall out, but it stays together. That was something that was inadvertently missed in the specs, and so that's part of the addition that you will see. The other piece is that there was an assumption made that all of the walls in the areas within the main entry were fire rated, which in most designs they are, which requires then that any new glazing glass goes in has to be fire rated. Once they got into the projects, they realized that 4 of the 6 don't have that fire rating. Therefore, the requirement of the fire rated glazing is not necessary. That's where you see a credit.
Those are significant.
Significant credits, yes, because fire rated glazing is very costly. And so we were able to see, so you see on package number 3, there was a total reduction in our total cost of $12,655, so essentially a credit of that much will go back to this project. In package 2, you've got a couple things with Wilson's Creek and Pleasant View related to the change of thickness of radius beam and shatter resistant window design. So I've tried to below in your, I was able to update this to give you some better explanation. There was different thickness to maintain optimal structural integrity when bending beam into the radius. That was the first one at Wilson's Creek. And then they developed a smaller design on the talk-through window that improves the quality of the acoustics, which actually was a credit. So that's where you see a total of a net increase to the project of $169 for Wilson's Creek. And then Pleasant View, you'll see that one of them was the change of lintel related to existing structural issues, and then an upsized panel from 42 to 54 spaces. So on the structural piece, you've got, it was compromised due to the expansion and contraction on the roof. And so the horizontal displacement of top layer of masonry and structural steel necessitated slight design change to establish that structural integrity. I actually had to Google, okay, and I know Tim knows this, but what is a lintel when it comes to construction? It's essentially the horizontal beam that sits on top of two vertical beams
Okay, now
for.
you're talking over my head.
So, but I had to understand what that was, and so that had to be taken care of. And then the second one, we actually had, that building was wired with tandem breakers, which is no longer the code.
Yeah.
Yeah, tandem breakers.
Can't have those tandem
And so
breakers.
therefore, we had to get that up to code. So Pleasant View, you'll see an increase of $963, or total addition for package 2 is $963. And then the final one that's not secure entrance related was the asbestos abatement at Delaware. You can only see so much, and they gave us a ballpark number of a budget, which it's that ballpark, their estimate still exceeded where we've actually spent. But once they got in, they did find more thermal pipe insulation, thermal pipe fitting insulation, and transite soffit. So that did add an increase of $46,400 to the abatement, which is part of the overall construction cost. And then as you'll see, that construction cost is well under budget. So all of these changes still keep the projects within budget so that we can continue moving forward, so.
Did you have some fancy language for my motion, or do I just say so moved or how do you roll?
I want to just say one thing, and then I've got very straightforward language for your motion. And here's what it is that thank you for this detailed explanation. This is terrific. This is how change orders should be presented. I appreciate that. One thing, though, that we need to keep an eye on is what is our contingency balance per project. And right now, our contingency balance on the project is really good. In fact, we're adding to contingency with those deduct change orders. But we've got to keep our eye on those as we go. And so on future reports, I hope that you'll just continue to say, here's where we are on contingency, because that's the number that really matters. Right now, because of the excellent bidding environment that we're in, we've been able to increase our contingency for the entire project. That will allow us to absorb changes that are inevitable in construction, and it may allow us to get an advance effort on other projects that have been identified by the community task force that unfortunately weren't able to be included in this round. We'll see. But the recommended action, Jill, is that the board approve the construction contracts for the change orders as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
And I'll second.
Denise, is there any further discussion on the motion? We ready to vote? Please vote.
Right. Keep
Oh,
rolling.
the ayes have it. The next one, 11.03. This is asbestos abatement.
As a reminder, we do have a contract with Gherkin for all of our asbestos abatement, and so the pricing to remove the asbestos at Berry, the Berry building, as well as one of the properties adjacent to Berry that we purchased, is a total of $58,867.12. There is a breakdown. The abatement at Berry is $47,507.12, and then the property adjacent to Berry is $11,350. So that abatement needs to be taken care of before we can proceed with demolition.
Any discussion? Any questions for Travis? The recommended action of the board approve the construction contracts as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Alina, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. Any further discussion? We ready to vote? Let's vote. Next, the ayes have it. The next one is Terracon Special Inspections, Construction Observation, and Testing Services for the Southwest ECC.
So I know you'll vote on the next three separately, but 11.04, 5, and 6 are all essentially the same service. They are presented a little bit differently because of the vendor that is being recommended for bid. So the first one being Terracon, and for special inspections and testing services at Southwest Early Childhood Center. This would be to provide those inspections and services for the general site grading density testing, concrete foundations, concrete flat work, which is the interior floor slab, concrete flat work on the exterior, pavement and sidewalks, masonry special inspections, structural steel observations, and asphaltic concrete density testing. In a nutshell, what this is we need a independent consultant that works directly for the district that is on site in inspections and testing while this work specifically is being done to ensure that it is being done to the qualities of the specs that we have in our drawings and in our guidelines, so that it's all done by code and that it's a third party, not the architect, not the GC, but it's somebody separate, and so we pay for this as part of the architecture and engineering costs to be able to have this for you.
It's like an expert witness in the legal field.
Well,
Is that
this
fair?
is,
Precisely.
this
I'm
is a
with you.
building code requirement that it be a third party
Right.
that has
Makes
absolutely no interest in, or no allegiance to the contractor.
And we weren't able to get permits issued until we submitted this to them.
I like
Yeah.
this part.
This is a fairly new section of the code. It's been in effect for about the last 2 or 3 editions.
Yeah, so say, we did, this is new.
Yeah, it is
I like
new.
it.
It's not just an inspection of the construction.
No, this is like going in and
Yeah,
checking every
exactly.
well, checking every
Yeah.
connection. It's part of the International Building Code.
Can you remind us where this is built into the budget?
So the initial budget, initially it was called the soft cost budget, but it's part of the architectural and engineer, because these are engineers, and so they will be, they'll go with the architect fees. We did geotechnical when we had
Okay,
civil
so we've already
engineers.
approved the general umbrella of the bid, and now we're just approving who's gonna do it? Would you
Well,
say
you've not
that's-
approved this amount. This is additional to any of the other engineering fees that you've approved. This is additional to the architect fees, but it goes within that amount, if that answers your question.
But it goes within that amount.
That we've assigned to the project.
Right.
Right, so you,
Just to Tim's earlier point, to the good point of looking at the whole picture and change orders and then these extra I don't know all those exact words, but looking at it holistically, so you're telling me this is an additional?
So earlier,
44?
when I showed you 2 numbers, I showed
Yes.
you the total
Yes.
the total project cost, and then I showed the construction cost.
Yes.
Construction's over here, that remaining amount that makes up the total project cost,
This is- and-
where that goes into play.
So this is a part of that?
Yes, and
If
well
you-
within that budget.
If you look at the quarterly reports, the monthly reports on the bond report, they do have a line item that says architect/engineer, and that's within the project. They'll have like, this is Southwest ECC, and they'll have construction, and then they'll have architect/engineer. And the amount for the architect/engineer is a lot more than what we're paying our architect/engineer. It has other numbers in it. I've asked administration to go back on future reports and make that a little clearer, or make it a little, check the descriptor a little bit, so that we can track it. But yeah, it's just significantly within the line item.
But it wasn't included in the original
Yes,
project cost.
yes,
It wasn't specified.
it wasn't a line item,
Right.
a specific line
And
item.
that's why it's coming to us as a contract and not a change order.
We're not adding
Correct.
it.
We're
Right.
not
Okay,
changing
that's a
something
good
that we're.
point.
That is
Say that one
exactly
more
right.
time. This is why it's
It's
coming
not a,
to us.
it's not coming to us as a change order.
Uh-huh.
It's coming to us as a contract as part of the total project.
It's within the
cost.
same scope.
We
as
assumed
brought
it's
to
coming.
you a contract for civil engineering fees.
Yes, I remember that.
Geotechnical.
Yes.
And kitchen design with Fellers. All of those things fit within that same category.
they're all
Yep.
budgeted cost of the project.
Yeah, and that is, in my review before coming here, that is the case with this one, the next one, and the one after that. All of these are the very same thing. So what I'd like to do, if there's no more discussion, is just say 11.04, the recommended, we'll do that as a motion, then I'll just go right into the next one as a motion, if that's all right. Is that okay? We do need to be formal, but and vote on these separately for the record, but let's go ahead on this one. This is the this is Terracon for the Southwest Early Childhood. The recommended action is the board approve the construction contracts as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Alina. Second?
Second.
Jill, thank you. Is there any discussion? We ready to vote? Please vote. The next one is Palmerton and Parrish, materials testing and special inspections for Delaware Elementary. Same thing, just over at Delaware. And the recommended action is the board approve the construction contracts as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Alina.
Second.
Thank you, Denise. We ready to vote? Let's vote. Third, the ayes have it. Third one, 11.06 is Palmerton and Parrish materials testing and special inspections for Sunshine Elementary. And that the recommended action is the board approve the construction contracts as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Alina. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charles. Any discussion? We ready to vote? Please vote. The ayes have it. And so that brings us to 11.07, Sunshine Renovation and Construction Contract. Travis?
So for Sunshine Renovation and Construction Contract, as a reminder, the architect team that has done the design on this is H Design with Hollis Miller. We did have the bid opening last week. We had 5 general contractors that bid on this project. The only one that didn't was Crossland, who received the award for Delaware, and so they did drop out. So 5 is still excellent competition. The contractor with the low bid that is being presented tonight is Carson Mitchell. And that lowest responsible bid was $11,089,600. The original construction cost estimate was $11,571,000. So well within our budget at construction cost. And once we have formal approval, then they will begin work tomorrow. They are chomping at the bit to get going.
Did all of the bids cluster fairly close together as has been
Yeah,
the
we've
case in
had
the past?
we've had great competition, tight. They had made a comment actually prior to just the architects said they want an SPS project, and so they were aggressive on this one because they had bid on the other 2 and didn't get it. And so I love the fact that we've got 3 different contractors doing the work. All 3 are local contractors, which is great, using a lot of local subcontractors. So again, what this comes down to is really how bad do they want the project, because a lot of them are getting the same subcontracting bids.
It's also good design architects and good project management. If you can get them, I mean, it's clear, understandable, they know what to do and get in there. I mean, that's, the tighter they are, to me, it's always been a better indication of the quality of the
Especially when
design
you're
package
renovating a
and-
building as
exactly.
old as what
Yeah,
some.
that's an amazing for a renovation to have a cluster like that.
I'll make a comment that Carson Mitchell, I've worked with them on a number of projects. This is just right up their alley. They are a 3rd-generation company. The 3rd generation has just recently come into ownership and management of the company, and both Jason Carson and his cousin Chris, their kids, I think, are at Sunshine.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is
Right
a
up my
neat deal.
alley. It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah,
a little
I-
ladybug, but still. It's awesome. All right, do I need a motion for something?
I need the motion that the board approve the construction contracts as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Jill. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Charles, you get the second. Are we ready to vote? Let's vote.
Thank you for sharing that detail. That was cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
Well, it's important to our stakeholders that we.
It's community, it's a
Local.
community project, for
Local.
sure.
And Travis gets to sit down now.
Yes, thank you, Travis.
The ayes have it, and we'll see you at the groundbreaking. 12.01 is public comments to address non-items. Kathy says we do not have any, so we go to the report from administration. John?
Perfect. I'll start with a few things, and then I'll ask the team to follow up. But before we get into this year, I want to wrap up last year. So I know you were able to participate in an Explore graduation where we had 44 graduates, so thanks to everybody for being there. We had 12,000 SPS students join us over the summer to continue their learning, gained over 2,000 credits, and those are only high school credits because you don't earn them at lower levels. 906 field experiences, 301,000 meals served to our kids over the summer, and beyond our district service, we also served 10,000 sections and launch enrollments from partner districts across the state over the summer. So great celebration of learning. 10,000 external partner students or credits or classes were enrolled in over the summer from our that are in the launch program. That resulted in the Explore was the culmination of the last year, right? And we resulted in 1,637 graduates for the class of 2019. By far, the largest graduating class I think that we can find in history. We hadn't had one over 600 before. It was a large class coming in. The good news is the graduation rate exceeded 88%, 2.5% gain over last year.
Just say that loud and proud again.
Say it again, real loud.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Couldn't
get
hear
that.
it.
2.5% gain, and then second highest in the last 10 years. A team of educators that rallied around our kids in order to make sure that they got across the what we call the starting line, not the finish line, was amazing. So appreciate all the efforts
That's
of the teachers, support staff, and leaders that made this possible. So as we kind of wrap up the year, that's one of the big metrics we look at. We'll see bringing you lots of metrics in the next few months, but that's one that we have been able to kind of solidify. The department has a cutoff date, and that's the number that we've calculated at this point. So we're incredibly excited to celebrate that as we kick off 2020. And let's transition to that. So 20,000 plus students joined us last week. If you add our pre-K numbers, well over 25.5. We all know that enrollment is very fluid in the first couple of weeks as we have transfer in, transfer outs, people relocating, and it doesn't stabilize till after Labor Day. But we're expecting to be steady as over the last few years, balanced enrollment. Kindergarten class looks to be just a little bit bigger than last year, maybe 0.5% or so, but we'll see how that gets past Labor Day. So a little over 1,900 kindergartners joined us. So it's been a great start to the school year. 630 K students joined us on day one, which is 2 days later. We give them a little bit of we let the schools get started before we add pre-K to the mix. That 630 pre-K will be probably 700 by the end of this week with a total of 780. And that's in our expansion area. That doesn't include our early childhood special education services. So we are filling those as we speak with students. So it's exciting to see those numbers continue to grow. Other things, I would just say thanks to Jill and Wes Pratt for kicking off as chairman of our Equity and Diversity Advisory Council. That process got started, and next meeting is next week. I think they would sell that it was a great opening conversation, and I know we have other board members in the room also, so thanks for your service on that as that important work kicks off. Other things for this year, we talked about our enrollment, but we also know that our launch partners has grown to 202 districts across the state at this point, and our fall enrollment is by far exceeding our earlier predictions, because I think the product is speaking for itself. Missouri educators engaging to support Missouri kids. 137 adjunct staff already hired to help support our kids and the kids from across the state to ensure course access. So it's a lot to say about that and how our team's
I just want
making
to
that
correct you
possible.
a little bit, because many people on this horseshoe have said to you from the beginning, if you build that, it will be enormous. So I just wanted to correct you. Most of us thought it would be bigger than you thought.
And that's good, right? I mean,
Right,
it's-
friends?
It's so that we see
Oh,
what's
it's awesome.
necessary. And as we see, as you're paying attention, you've got MSBA alerts regarding other players that are joining the market, which
Great.
is exactly why we built Launch, to keep these other players from, for-profit players coming into Missouri to try to take resources out of the hands of districts that support kids and Missouri educators that support kids, which data has proven out they do. So proud of the team of educators that are rallying around the this project. So
And thank you for the vision on it.
good for everybody at this point.
Yes, it
so
is.
we'll keep moving that forward. I think those are the big things on my plate. I'm going to pass it over to Carol, and then we'll work our way this way.
Great, thank you. So I know Dr. Jungman alluded to the instructional staffs and leaders and support as well. I can't be more proud of our support teams and the work that they've done to deliver so that we're out of the way and all for kids and for teachers and others in our building. So tremendous shout out to them, and that also includes all the people behind the scenes making sure they get paid from their entry through human resources to that first paycheck. I want you to know that I've been working with BKD, our internal audit services provider, and you can anticipate we'll have our first report, likely in closed session, is our practice on the transportation portion November 5. And then that will be followed by the records audit and then the purchasing audit as well. So November 5 would be our targeted date unless there's some extenuating circumstance. And I am so excited to share with you some really great news. I just learned it this evening, but I need you to know that we are actually going to close on one of our real estate transactions. You approved the sale of the 529 West Division way back July 17, 2018. This is to Overland Group, and we've been through a great deal of due diligence and just learned that they are ready to close next week. So, Mr. Rosenberry, we will be looking for you to come in and sign documents.
I will have my pen.
We'll be ready, yes. So tremendous celebration,
Yes.
great for the community.
A lot of behind-the-scene work there.
Yes.
For you.
And that's my report.
In addition to the 137 adjunct staff that Dr. Jungman mentioned, we have added 148 new to SPS teachers. 98 of those are external hires, which is wonderful to bring in teachers with different experiences or new to the profession teachers. Even equally or more exciting to me personally is the 50 teachers that we have hired from amongst our staff. Our paraprofessionals, our instructional technologists, or other staff who are certificated teachers who took that opportunity to learn and grow in the position that was available to become teachers in our system. And so that speaks volumes about supporting our own and helping them grow into that profession, and we're very excited about that.
Penny, that was 50?
50,
Oh.
50. So it's a significant number. And Ms. Embry mentioned the Ready, Set, Supply program in her conversation about the budget. We're excited and want to say thank you to the 68 businesses and entities that helped support that program this summer. Through their efforts and their partnership, 7,182 students were able to start school with the supplies that they needed, and that was up from 6,800 last year. And so this community just responded and always responds when we come out to them with our need, and so we're thankful for their support. And lastly, our Power of One Hero theme for this year for our employee recognition program kicked off with our back to school video and efforts. You all should have received your t-shirt, and we're excited to share that we have gotten those t-shirts out to all of our staff, and we will begin recognizing staff shortly. And in fact, we have already begun that process, and we'll continue that throughout the year.
So looking forward to continuing the Progress as Promised celebrations next week with our groundbreaking at Delaware on Monday, the 26th at 4:30, and then following that with Sunshine on Thursday at 10 a.m. So lots of community members will be a part of those celebrations, and we're looking forward to that. Other Progress as Promised, I thought I would share with you a note that we received from MoDOT thanking our principals. So kudos to Dr. Anderson and their teams working with MoDOT to communicate special traffic concerns and needs around the start to school, and MoDOT sent it back and said they could not have successfully communicated that without the help of our principals and the team. I think that was much smoother than any of us had anticipated, and that was a result of the team's collaboration here. Wanted to feature pedestrian safety. That is a key theme right now, and so the city of Springfield through the SGF Yields program is placing more of the walker statues at our elementary schools. So Bingham, McGregor, Mann, Pittman, and Williams will all receive those Mr. Walker statues as part of that continued effort on pedestrian across our community. The Foundation for SPS last week held its annual luncheon to recognize donors that support our schools throughout the year. It's important to note that Mercy Health Systems was named the 2019 Corporate Partner of the Year for their support of SPS, Health Sciences Academy being one major piece. Bill and Ann Turner family were ranked as the 2019 Advocates of the Year, contributing more than $180,000 for literacy support in our schools. Hickory Hills received a grant in honor of outgoing Foundation President Mark Mayer. And then finally, Sylvia Pope, a third grade student from Weller, was recognized for supporting the Weller Playground renovation effort Life Savings. And we'll be having a ribbon cutting at Weller in September for that new project, also completed. And Sylvia will be featured as well as many of the other
You'll
donors.
invite us to that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, that will be in September. And then finally, just our back-to-school media coverage. We've had a number of our team feature our nutrition servicing about their dedication to getting our kids back to school with their nutrition needs met. Traffic and bus safety, our transportation team, and the amazing work that they do to make sure our kids are safe every day. That's been featured in the media, as well as our health services team, vaccinations, and they'll begin their flu clinics in September with flu shot district. Finally, on the first day of school, we focused our attention on Sunshine Elementary, welcoming the students back there with, again, the Progress is Promised theme. And then Fremont Elementary, we had our Greene County Emergency Services were there to welcome the daughter of the fallen hero back to school on the first day. So our first day of media coverage was positive and things to celebrate. So thank you.
Thank you, team.
Want to move into legislative?
Yes, nothing to report, because we're still out of session at this point. So
All right.
we're moving obviously towards session, and we'll bring you documents to begin to review and build up our platform for the upcoming session.
Thank you, John.
You're
Any
welcome.
comments or from the board? 14.01, anything? We good?
Great graduation, Explore graduation. It was awesome.
As always.
Always.
Yeah. All right, well, we've covered a lot tonight. I want to remind you of some upcoming meetings. The groundbreakings, you don't want to miss these. The 26th of August, 4:30 p.m. is Delaware. That's the 26th. 3 days later, on the 29th, 9 a.m., that's during school, will be Sunshine Elementary. 10? Okay. That's all right.
I mean, in my phone it says.
10 o'clock, Sunshine Elementary. That ought to be pretty exciting since it's during school. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what that's going to be like.
Oh, it'll be fun. Kids will be out.
We have a study session coming up on September 3rd. Happy Labor Day. This annual meeting, we are invited, noon on Monday, September 16th. I saw an invitation today from Kathy. Please respond to her. We have a regular meeting then the very next day, the 17th. And then at the end of September, we will be going to MSBA. How many presentations we're going to be involved in? I know I've got one. I think that's just the one. Are you?
You're doing one, Glendale's doing one on their,
On the program.
The flock.
yeah, flock.
Yep.
Together.
So there's
Yep.
two of them.
Fantastic. Any other meetings that mention?
That one, you've already got drafted.
If not, don't forget your comments on Post-its. Give to Kathy for the just an evaluation of any part of the meeting. We appreciate that. Now, I need to read that we are going to vote to go into executive session in just a moment. Action is that the board meet in executive session following this meeting to discuss legal, real estate, and personnel matters as provided in section 610.021, subparagraphs 1, 2, 3, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Charles, we ready to vote? Let's vote. Let's vote.
Yeah. Andy?
There it is.
You done?
The ayes have it. Thank you.